How has Joe Burrow played this season through 9 weeks? That's a question I'm going to ask Kyle Caskey, former Bengals and Lions running backs coach. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. If you missed part one of our conversation with Kyle Caskey, check that out. And if you missed our interview with Dan Hoard, the radio voice of the Bengals, check that out as well. Because you know what we don't do here? We do not take a break on Cincinnati Bengals talk. I'm James Rapien. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and let's dive into part two of our conversation with Kyle Caskey. How has Joe Burrow played the first 9 games of the season? How would you evaluate his performance?
Inconsistent. He's played at the very top level that I've ever seen, and I'd say that against Atlanta. Obviously, when you have over 500 yards of offense, it's just I don't care who you're playing. That's the top level. That's one of the top performances I've seen. But then then obviously the first game of the year, the Cleveland game, it's kind of up and down. I thought this game was good for him because this was a game that with Chase being out and they were able to use something else in their offense and give a break to him and let him get in a rhythm of something else. And it was good. And if he could just play, he doesn't have to play Atlanta style the entire time. He doesn't have to do that. If he just plays like he did the other day against Carolina and plays consistent, doesn't make mistakes, checks the ball down. I think that's one of the big things when you look at other teams. Everybody I've mentioned this before. Everybody talks about Le'Veon Bell when he was at Pittsburgh and how great of a receiver he was. I don't think he was a great receiver. He was a guy that Ben Roethlisberger dropped the ball down to, and he became a running back in space. And you can do that. So, forcing the ball to all these other playmakers is great, but just dink and dunk to Joe or Samaje or any of those guys that are in there, and you can find more consistency, I think. But I'd say inconsistent overall, but he'll be fine.
What's the next step you think for this offense? If you were in the building right now, and obviously the offense has been inconsistent, defense dealing with some injuries, hopefully they'll heal up. And I want to ask you about the defense in a second, but offensively now they've shown that they can win with 500 yards passing. Mm-hmm. They've shown they can win without Chase. They've finally gotten Mixon involved and going and running the ball for 150 plus and 200 yards from scrimmage overall. What's the next step? Obviously they need to be more consistent, but what do you think they're talking about right now on things that they have to work on to make sure they finish strong and make it back to the playoffs?
I think it's got to be a flow between whatever Atlanta was and whatever Carolina was. There's got to be that mix of everything, because there's been some games where it's like just throwing the ball all the time, and you find that you could have just been running the ball or get the RPOs going. Like the stuff they did against New Orleans, when they played New Orleans, and again, I keep talking about all these NFC South teams, but I know their division is not very good, but they're still NFL players. But point being is, you got to look at what they were doing in the RPO game, because a lot of that was helping them out a ton, and it takes pressure off of Burrow, because really those are your quick game. You can take all your quick game out of the playbook. You can take it and just scrap it. Put your RPOs, connect them to your runs, and then that gets Joe in a gun. That lets Joe Mixon run it, and it gets you the ball to your playmakers, and then creates your drop back off of that. But everybody talks about the under center stuff. I don't think it's as big of a deal as probably we're all making it out to be. I know I kind of at first was like, they still need to go under center, but in all reality, if you're comfortable in the gun and you're comfortable in the RPO game, which he seems to be, and Joe Mixon's comfortable running out of the gun, then stay in the gun. Do what you do. Find your happy place for that. And then if you want to run under center, like I know Frank likes to do as a line coach, and which is fine, mix some of that in there, but don't force it if you don't have to.
The one thing that this offense has struggled with the past year and a half, and I'm going to ask you about the defense after this, but it's the short yardage. Mm-hmm. The thing that was a welcome sight for me is the quarterback sneaks in recent weeks. I feel like we've seen way more quarterback sneaks in the past month than we've seen in Joe Burrow's career. And what goes into that? Because look, I'll be honest, and I get it's a front thing, but in Madden, you can get 2 yards on a quarterback sneak anytime. And I'm sure a lot of our viewers view it that way. What goes into calling a quarterback sneak and deciding to go that route? And why don't you just do it on every 4th and 1 or 3rd and 1 or 3rd and inches?
I think number one is it does depend on the front, because some teams have, like, we call it a sneak front, and that's when all the D linemen come down in the A and the B gap, and you get the linebacker standing right over the center. Those are kind of hard to do, but again, you can, because everybody's just wedge blocking anyway. But I think a lot of it has to do maybe with Joe Burrow was the fact that he was hurt a couple years ago. Maybe that's why you hadn't seen as much of it until now. Now he feels a little bit more comfortable, because number one, that you never ever want to get your quarterback hurt running the ball. And a quarterback sneak, I get it's not a big deal, but you're still scrumming down in there. So that may have had something to do with it. But I guarantee you, Joe Burrow probably said, listen, guys, they're not even playing me to sneak the ball. Let's just start going for it. Let's do that. And you know what? You know what he could be doing? I don't know this because I haven't heard it on the TV copy, and I haven't been in their building, obviously. But there's times that the quarterback can just come up and make that call at the line. It's part of that call. Like there's a sneak code word in there, and he goes up under center and he sees he's got it, then he'll make the call. Or maybe it's the first play of a two play call in the huddle where he'll can it or whatever, kill it. If it's not there. So it's good to see, though, because I think it is something that's easy.
That's the Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Right. Calling the quarterback sneak at the line. I feel like he does that a ton year in and year out. Kyle Caskey joining us again. Make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel, Caskey's Clicker, at Coach Kyle Caskey on Twitter. Let's ask you about the defense, because to me, this unit kept the Bengals afloat when they were navigating those offensive struggles, especially early in the year. DJ Reader getting healthy. It feels like he's going to be back for week 11, although we don't know that for sure. I'm not confirming that, ladies and gentlemen, for those wondering. But Chidobe Awuzie out, so that you take a hit there. But overall, how do you feel like this defense is played, and do you think it's sustainable given the schedule in the second half of the season?
I think they've played, as well as you can want them to play, honestly, throughout this season. They've been, fairly consistent. Obviously the Cleveland second half kind of, wasn't what they wanted it to be, but you're going to have those every once in a while. I will say, in the absence of Reader being out, that a couple of these guys, I'll name some names, BJ Hill, Zach Carter, I'm losing my guy.
Jay Tufele.
Yeah, there you go. Those guys they're getting pushback on the line, so they're holding their own, and they're not allowing that to be as big of a deal as probably people thought it was going to be. Obviously, your two edge players, man. I'm telling you, Hubbard and Hendrickson. Those are the two guys right now that are kind of driving what that defense is doing, because they're not allowing the edge. So you're kind of forcing everything in the run game to almost go in the through the middle to those big guys. And obviously your two linebackers are playing well. They haven't done anything just spectacular, but they're playing well. I think the thing that they're doing, and I think Lou Anarumo does a great job of kind of disguising what they're doing at times, and not necessarily letting the offense dictate what what's going on with them. Because I know a lot of times there was a big conversation about Chris Evans and getting him on the field, and how can you dictate with the defenses and things like that. What they're doing on defense is they're showing, like, especially third downs, showing a double A front. They're putting everybody up on the line. And then if they motion, then they check out of it and they go to like a true Tampa 2. And they did that against Carolina the other day. And I tell you, it screwed PJ Walker all up. And it was such a simple check, but you can do that. The other thing is, I think you guys, I've listened to y'all's podcast, and I've heard y'all talk about a creeper blitz. I call it more, I'm used to calling it an exchange blitz, because the blitzer's exchanging with a DN who's dropping. So anyway, it's where you're blitzing a guy, but you're really only still bringing four guys. So you're like blitzing the nickel, but you're dropping the backside in. So they're exchanging.
Trey and Hubbard have done. Yeah.
Yeah. And those are very, very effective, because you can rotate this. You could just straight rotate the coverage. So it can look like cover 3. You blitz the nickel. So you got a guy coming off the edge who's not part of the initial probably count, who maybe takes the back out of it, and then they can rotate to cover 2. And they did that. And Jesse Bates got an interception in this last game. And that kind of stuff, it's so simple for the defense. It really is. There's nothing hard for that. But if you mix it in the way he mixes it in, and talking about Lou Anarumo, he's doing a good job of keeping people off balance. And that's where I think they got to continue to do that. But overall, I mean, the secondary, I mean, for what they were asked to do the other day and all the guys that are out,
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't shy away from man coverage. They played a lot of zone, don't get me wrong, but they didn't shy away from playing man. And I thought Eli Apple did a decent job. I didn't really feel like he was exposed at all. And I think everybody was kind of worried about that. But I mean, really, and I'll go back real quick, go back to Hendrickson. And again, I know this guy got graded real high, but their left tackle, Iquanu, who was a sixth pick in this last draft, Hendrickson had his way with him. I mean, he ran around him. He hit the quarterback. He didn't give up a sack. I get it. But he hit the quarterback a few times, and he was just bullying this guy back into the quarterback, which is just like getting a quarterback hit because obviously if the backside of your tackle's hitting you, it's not good. So, but there were some things these guys are doing. I'm been impressed with them all year. I think getting them a little bit healthier, keeping those guys progressing that way will help them out.
Yeah, Hendrickson's a monster. When they signed him, I wasn't sure. I mean, especially, you were on the staff when you drafted Carl Lawson, and I always thought Carl Lawson was a freak. And it's like, all right, will Hendrickson be able to do that? And he's done that, and then just a lot more.
But I'll tell you this much: he's different from Carl. Carl was so compact and like a Tasmanian devil type guy. I mean, he would just spin around and use hard to get on. And Hendrickson's just long and mean. I mean, he is
mean.
He's just getting he gets a hold of these linemen and he extends and gets it, he just extends out and he just has his way. I mean, he's just throwing these guys around or bulling them back and throwing them off. And I mean, it's I don't remember him being like that in New Orleans, to be honest with you. I know he had a great year the year before he came to Cincinnati, but I don't remember that being that big of a deal. And I mean, he's shown out since he's gotten at Cincinnati.
Yeah, him and Hubbard are like best friends. They go everywhere together. Like on the practice field, they walk out together. They walk off together. They stretch together. All of those things. And I think Hubbard's having his best season as well. Like to me, let's go back to 2018. And I know you weren't, on the defensive side of the ball, but when Hubbard gets drafted, what'd you guys think of him? Obviously, you liked him enough to draft him, but what'd you think of him?
I think we all kind of thought he was going to be one of those guys that would come in and play a little bit, kind of get his feet wet as a rookie. Obviously, being kind of a local kid too, it was we all kind of were like, yeah, we've all seen him. So I was a little shocked at when he came in at how aggressive he was at his kind of size and length. I wasn't really expecting that. And then he's grown more into his body. He's gotten used to that professional type of defensive end outside linebacker play where the extension is important. And he's got, I think he's lived up to everything we thought he was going to be and probably better, but we didn't expect him to come in at that time and just take over, but we kind of expected this where he's at now to happen.
He's Kyle Caskey. Make sure you check out Caskey's Clicker on YouTube, at Coach Kyle Caskey on Twitter. Kyle, this is really good stuff. Make sure you follow him on Twitter, by the way, because he'll post quick film breakdowns and then obviously more extensive ones right here on YouTube. Kyle, appreciate the time, man. It was good seeing you in New Orleans. Hopefully you don't get ran over by that bodyguard that was coming in that picture. But hopefully we can do this again soon.
Well, we can do it again anytime you want. But I'll tell you what, I had the sideline pass, and I walked out on the field, and I was actually talking to Joe Mixon before the game, and New Orleans security came and got me. They grabbed me literally by the back of the neck and pulled me out of there. So it wasn't the guy in the picture, man, but somebody else came and got me.
Oh, they really did.
They really came and yanked me.
I didn't know that happened.
They put me behind the rope. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I swear I'm not causing any problems. But he was cool with it. But he just said, you got to get behind the rope, man. So,
grabbed you by the neck. Oh, my God.
I mean, we're really legit, like, got me by the back of my shirt and just yanked me.
Big guy?
He was bigger than me, yeah. And funny thing was, I was actually talking to Joe Mixon when it happened. And Joe's just laughing at me, man. And I was like, whatever, man. But
I coached him. What are you talking about? Yeah.
That's what I tried to tell him on the way out, but he's like, okay.
He's not buying it. At that stage, it's like a bouncer in a bar, man. It's just man, if you don't get behind the line. So, I appreciate the time, Kyle. We'll talk soon. Thanks for coming on.
Good.
Great stuff from Kyle Caskey. Make sure you follow him at Coach Kyle Caskey. Caskey's Clicker right here on YouTube. And while you're subscribing there, make sure you subscribe to us as well. Ring the bell so you're getting all of the notifications. We didn't have a break this week. We are not taking a break. No, not with the bye. it's full steam ahead. Football season is our season here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. So thank you so much for watching. If you missed Dan Horde on Thursday, check out that interview. If you missed the OT with Elise Jesse, make sure you check that out. Bengals on the Brain with Joe Goodberry and part 1. If you just finished part 2 and you're wondering where the first part was, we broke down Joe Mixon, the offensive line, and more with Kyle Caskey. So for Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien, signing off for now on CBT, Cincinnati Bengals Talk.